Hello and welcome back to the When You're podcast, the podcast for when you're doing anything. Today we're talking about when you're watching Rocky 3 and Rocky 4. I mean, you want to talk about two houses of this whole franchise. I mean, watching these two watching this whole franchise from beginning to end is so strong and powerful, but these two really sell it for me. These two are kind of what really, don't get me wrong, the first and the second are what built and created the franchise, but I think 3 and 4 really perfected the genre of underdog or perseverance and strength, pushing through adversity. Not that the first two didn't, but I think these two just do such a great job of glamorizing boxing. They do a great job of glamorizing Rocky and the troubles and the tribulations of having success and especially in in an athletic sport. The things that you have to deal with, the struggles and the pain and what you could lose, what you can gain, how it all affects you and what really matters in those situations and in those moments. So first I want to talk about Rocky 3. Rocky 3 is an example of the glory of success, if you will. So right after Rocky 2, he's now the world champion. He's the heavyweight world champion in boxing, and you see him reap all of the fruits of his labor, all of the push and pain that he felt in his whole life, all of the struggle that he felt, all of the rejection, the working in the meat house, living in the gutter. It's all now benefiting him. This once in a lifetime opportunity to, in the first Rocky, face the champion, and then the second one to beat the champion. Now he's on top, and now he gets to accept all of the great blessings that life has given him, and he accepts challenges after challenges, boxing after boxing match. I mean, he's doing advertisements, he's going on TV shows, he's being praised and loved. He has a family now. I mean, everything is just going super, super well for him. And that's when things get a little scary. That's where things get a little too good to be true. But he's riding the high life. And how can you hate it, right? When you watch the first two movies and then you get to the third, you're like, yo, I'm happy for you. It's a great blessing. He's definitely worked hard for it. But it's just like, you can't help but feel a little bit like, oh snap, something's coming, it's right there. And that's in the form of Clubber Lang, played by Mr. T. But I was feeling that moment of you really have no idea who's coming after you until they initiate a challenge, until they start pushing at you. And while Rocky's enjoying being number one and winning and having good matches that he thinks are top tier fights and that he's beating them, we know that behind the scenes Mickey is watching everything. He doesn't just have his eyes on Rocky. It's his job to protect him and to manage him and to make the smartest moves for him. But he's also got to keep track of who's coming up to get him. You know what I'm saying? It's always a very, very big part of what's going to happen. How is this going to lead us forward? How are we going to maintain our strength? How are we going to keep what we have? And what really matters in this movie is you need a little bit of friction. Rocky's enjoying an unprecedented amount of good times, and when it's too much of that one thing, there needs to be a little bit of friction, a little bit of pushback, something to push against you or to fight back. Otherwise, you'll get a little bit soft. And that's what I think success does sometimes, is we start living the good life and we've earned it. Nobody's saying we haven't earned it, but it does dull the senses. It doesn't leave you sharp between the ears as when you're hungry, as when you really were fighting for that root of success. You know what I'm saying? It's what I was talking about in the in the first Rocky movie, made in 28 days. This third one took a little bit longer. I don't know the exact production time it took, but I have to say it was long. It probably took longer than 6 months, guessing here. But Rocky 3 is so much more than just looking at Rocky. It's also looking at the antagonist of the movie, which is Clubber Lang. You're looking at somebody who's hungry, somebody who's from the bottom, somebody who wants his spot, somebody who's angry at the world, or somebody who feels like they're the strongest, they're the best, they deserve it, you know what I mean? Somebody who's so full of themselves. And not for nothing, but he's got the strength to back it up. He's got the determination. He has the quote-unquote eye of the tiger. He's going to push through it. He's going to torture his body. He's going to go through so much pain and struggles for the opportunity to become heavyweight champion. And Rocky, even though he's at the top, he's not prepared for He's not prepared for that kind of animal. He's not prepared for that kind of beast. It was different when, I think it's always different when the underdog is fighting somebody who everybody expects to win, because they have, less, not that they have less to prove. It's just like, if they show up and they suck, well, then, they're the underdog. They were supposed to lose, right? But if they actually give a little bite, they're not just bark, they get a big bite. Huge punches, huge blows, really, really digging in deep into their opponent. Then it becomes a different story, right? It's no longer just, he's an underdog. He's a proven fighter. And that's how this movie kind of felt. And you see that when you look at their different training styles, right? Rocky is out there. He's like, has the press watching him. He's got merchandise all around. And Mickey's looking around him and he's just like, let's get out of here. What are you doing? Let's go back to the real gym. The real gym is not crowded with all of your fans loving you. It's not filled with the press watching you do the speed bag. It's not them watching you jump rope. It's not, signing autographs and being friendly with people. All that it's about is the sweat, blood, and tears it takes to really push. The blood, sweat, and tears that he had when he started training for Apollo Creed. And that's gone. I can't... I don't really know, or I can't really guess how long he's like... how long he's riding the success for. It's a little difficult to tell. I tried to gauge it by how old his son is. Like, I think from the last Rocky movie to where he is now, his kid's like 4 or 5 years old, something like that, right? He's pretty young. So he's got like, I'll say between 4 to 6 years of really being on top. You know what I'm saying? He's got like that amount of time of being on the top. He's won 10 heavyweight fights to maintain his title. So somewhere in between that amount of time. And during that time, he's been, maybe the first year he was really like staying focused. He had to stay sharp. So that way those who are trying to fight him for his spot, right? Like, this is probably the story that they went with, right? Oh, he doesn't deserve the shot. I was supposed to fight Apollo Creed. He's just a wannabe. Then you have something to prove, right? Now that you got it, now you got to defend it. And then after a few fights, let's say 5 fights, right? He's halfway through. Then he starts to get a little bit more into advertising. Then he starts to be a little bit more, oh my gosh, he's the best boxer. And then that's when everybody some sort of comes roaring in, right? That's when everything changes. And then it starts to decline just a little bit, just little by little. Not all at once, but just little by little. And it really leaves him unprepared. And Mickey starts seeing this. He starts noticing it. And he's just like, we got to leave all this. We got to make the gym what we once had it. The beauty of it. Don't you remember those moments? Like, think of something that you love. Think of something that you truly love, something that you really enjoy, right? Like, let's say you're an artist and you really love painting. You're, you know, at a certain point, the painting has gone so sophisticated, have you ever, this is a completely different movie that I watched, but it's called The Menu. Spoilers for the movie The Menu. But in the movie, he's kind of talking to all of these high critics and movie stars and social media lights and whatnot. People who like criticize and make food cheap. They cheapen food or food that he loves or the passion that he had for cooking early on when he was making burgers, right? They've cheapened it and they put it into some sort of different category, something completely crazy and not what it's supposed to be. And that's kind of how Mickey feels right now. That's kind of how Mickey feels in this movie. And I'm not going to say it broke his heart, but I am going to say that it left Mickey feeling like there was a lot more to Rocky. You know, there was that it's crazy when you can tap into your true potential and then it can kind of diminish. It can kind of dissolve away. You know what I'm saying? It's not what it used to be anymore. So that's why Mickey was telling Rocky, he was like, they were fixed, or it was like, no, they were, Rocky was like, they were fixed fights. You fixed the fights for me. He's like, no, I didn't fix the fights for you, but they weren't killers like this guy is. They weren't killers like Clubber Lang. They weren't real hard hitters like Clubber Lang. And Rocky's like, it's not real. It doesn't feel real. And there's a little bit of a tension between them. But the truth is that Mickey was looking out for him. He wanted to keep him healthy. He wanted to be there for him. He had to do what was right. And I think with Mickey dying in this movie, Rocky knew. Rocky for sure was tore up inside because for so long Mickey was always there to provide really Adrian is the brain, but Mickey was really there to channel his winning motivation. It was, Adrian is super, super smart, but so is Mickey, especially in sports and what it takes to be a winner, a champion. He pushed him to where he got today, and it's not left Rocky. So it's kind of, when he loses to Clubber Lang, it just tears him apart. Not only did he lose the fight, he lose his title, he also lost somebody so dear to him, somebody so important. And both of those emotions inside just completely tear you up. So now, Rocky has gone from an all-time high to the lowest low he's ever felt before. Because let's say you really are in the garbage. You're really trash, and you experience it, right? You've lived that terrible life from the bottom, and then you make it to greatness. You're at the top again. But then something happens after time, during this life that we live, when we live our lives the best way possible, we got so much more to lose, don't we? And he lost so much, and it made him afraid. It made him not want to fight anymore. But Apollo Creed knew that, and he brought him back from the gutter. Oh my goodness. I mean, the training montage between these two. I mean, just there is no tomorrow mentality that Apollo Creed yells at Rocky. I mean, that wakes me up, You got to get started. If you're not getting started, you're not going to have a future. You know, you're always going to be stuck in the same place. You're always going to be hurt in this particular time, in this particular moment. And that's not what life is about. You got to fight and you got to push through it because tomorrow is going to come. And whether you like it or not, tomorrow is going to come. Do you still want to be holding on to that feeling, to that sadness, to that anger, to that hurt forever? Or do you want to do something about it? Do you want to change? You know, I read a quote that was like, you know, change is scary, but so is staying the same. And that just, you know, that's what Apollo Creed yelling at Rocky tells me. Is just like, there's no tomorrow. It's right now. If you get started right now, you can change your whole life. And that's what I want. That's what I want for myself. And in the end, hey, Rocky pulls through. He does it. I mean, you can just feel the... Clubber Lang's punches don't hit as hard because now Rocky is in the right state of mind. Now he's thinking clearly. Now he's in a place of, it's, you know, you don't hurt. Before he hurt. Now it's like, you're nothing. I went through Mickey dying. I went through being in the gutter. I trained with the best of the best now. I trained with Apollo. I trained with Mickey. I'm from Philadelphia in the bottom, living on nothing. You can't hurt me. And that's kind of how I feel. And then he makes it back to the top. He wins it. And he's champion once again. And that takes us right into Rocky IV. So Apollo and Rocky, they get another bout going. And it's unclear who won. Right? But then we kind of see that Apollo Creed is in this weird state, in this weird place of he's still a fighter. He's still a warrior. He's still somebody who craves that action. You know what I mean? Somebody who really, really wants to stay in that line of fire, if you will. You know? People who really are, you know, for lack of a... They're born of, you know, they got Spartan DNA. They really are, in their hearts, fighters. And that's what Apollo feels. That's who he is. That's what he loves. And he you know, he talks about it and he says it best to Rocky is like, without some war to fight, the warrior might as well be dead. And you kind of feel it. Inside of him, he notices it. He's very self-aware of his position. Is that like he's doing very well for himself, and he's done very well for himself. But none of that means anything when his spirit is dying. You know, you can have all the greatest businesses in the world. You can have all of this great money and stuff, but that's not the feeling that matters anymore. Right? Once you get to a high level of success. You know, I like hearing rappers talk about the first big paycheck that they ever got. You know, it was like, what was it like when you got that money? It was like, I made $28,000 or something like that. And they're like, that $28,000 might as well have been $10 million. You know, that was everything to me. And then once you get to a place where every single day you make more and more and more and more money, the more diluted it becomes, right? The more and more you don't crave it as much. You know what I'm saying? It stops becoming a big deal and it just becomes regular. Oh, it's regular that I made $100K today. Oh, it's regular that I just made, that I'm getting paid $1 million a show. Stuff like that. And I imagine that's how Apollo Creed feels. He's been world champion. He's been world champion. He's trained Rocky. He has a good relationship with the current standing world champion, and he's got money. He's surviving. He's not dying or anything. He's not, you know, he's still healthy. And then he takes this fight with Ivan Drago because he feels like he's still got something left to put out into the world. And it was very scary for Rocky to see that Apollo was struggling with who he was in this new life. And he also challenges Apollo. He's like, listen, we're not those guys anymore. We're not young, we're not youthful, we're not killers like we used to be. We gotta figure out how to be domestic. We gotta figure out how to be normal. We can't have that killer mentality in us anymore, right? I saw a podcast, or I saw a clip of a podcast that Mike Tyson did, and he was kind of talking to himself. Well, he was talking about how prison was the best 3 years of his life. And I was like, for me, I would be like, prison would be awful. But for him, it was this stillness, this peace. And everybody was like, well, you lost a lot of money, you lost this. And he's like, none of that means anything if I don't have peace in my life. And Apollo wasn't in a place of peace. And Rocky was trying to find that peace of okay and not being the top heavyweight fighter anymore, not being the guy who is so loved and appreciated, at the highest caliber of athleticism. He was trying to find that sweet spot of, I'm okay. And it killed him. Apollo Creed eventually gets into that ring for the last time. And looking back on it, obviously when I first watched it, understanding the character and what he was feeling at the time, it was kind of like it was expected that this, that was going to be the outcome of it all. Him kind of yelling at Rocky about like, well, the warrior may as well be dead. That was kind of that solidified his place. That solidified what was going to happen to him. Because this was his last fight. He either dies in the ring or he's going to go crazy for the rest of his life, not trying, always trying to fight. And it was heartbreaking, and it put a lot of strain on Rocky's heart as well. Because now he has to live with that. And as we'll see later down the road, it has big ramifications for a lot of people and a lot of things in his life. So what matters most now is Rocky. What happens next? And then these are some of my favorite montage or, moments of Rocky or in this movie of when he's arguing with Adrian about fighting Ivan Drago, about how he has to take the fight. And Adrian is just, hey, listen, she's afraid, she's scared. For Rocky, she's trying to do the smart thing, which is tell him, hey, life is going to go on, and you can't blame yourself, and you can't hold that guilt in your heart forever. And you don't have to fight to prove it. And Rocky is just like, I'm a warrior just like him. He died, and I have to avenge him. I have to be who I am. And the only way that I can do that is by getting in that ring and fighting to the end. And if that means death, then so be it. And that just hit me so hard. And then he gets in his car, and they do the driving montage. And I feel like there could have been a little bit more moments. They kept on flashing back to Rocky 3, and I was just like, okay, I see them running on the beach a little bit too many times, but it worked for me. It was just so powerful, and it meant so much to me watching that moment, watching that montage. And then finally, we see Rocky training in Russia. He's training out there, he's doing his thing, and it is without a doubt my favorite Rocky training montage ever. Just the overall, obviously the difference between Rocky and Ivan, but it's also just that crazy will that the two of them could push, one doing it a little bit more, not routinely, what am I trying to say? A lot more scientific, I guess, and the other one just going through intense physical labor to push his body to the limit. And it just it talks to their character, and it speaks to the both of them. Whereas Ivan Drago is obviously juicing, this guy is putting his body through physical torture in the form of physical labor. And I just remember hearing the mantra over and over again: no pain, no pain, no pain. And it pushes me. It makes me go like, there's nothing I can't accomplish either. You know what I mean? There's no pain that's intolerable. It's only just beginning. And you're going to push through it. And you're going to succeed in everything that you try. And then obviously the fight happens, right? And I got to tell you, it really makes you try so hard. You want to be in the ring. You want to be there in the corner. You want to be in that space. And you see him win the crowd over every single round. You see him cut Ivan Drago. You see him land punch after punch. It's crazy. It was really crazy. And in the end, he wins. Woo! And I got to tell you, it's beautiful. And then his little speech at the end. Oh my goodness. Those speeches always come through. And I think Rocky IV is probably my favorite of the Rocky franchise. I just feel like there was so much heart and loss in that movie. I mean, same with Rocky III. I think both of them together work really well. But if I had to choose one or the other, I'm going with Rocky IV. That one just pushes me, and who I am, and the kind of life I want to lead a little bit, and the things that I'm willing to do for people that I love. Am I willing to get in a ring, for somebody who matters to me? And the answer is yes, I would. I would do anything it takes to win, to push against somebody or something that has hurt me or that challenges me. And that's kind of what I feel about this movie is. It's a challenge. It's the biggest challenge, and I have to face it head on. There's no running from it. There's no evading it. There is only head-on collision. And that's what that movie reminds me of. And it's what it means to me. And so, that's it for today, guys. I mean, definitely go watch these two. I'm telling you right now, you watch these two, you're going to want to train like Rocky. There's no way you can watch this movie and not be inspired to work out. It's just the way that it goes. So I want to say a big thank you guys. Thank you guys so much for listening. And thank you for subscribing to the YouTube channel for this. Thank you so much for listening on Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, Google Podcasts. I mean, thank you so much. It means a lot to me. And I'll see you guys all next time. Thank you.